Here we go.
I'm Daryl with Redmond Salt, and I'm a homestead homie, and you're watching Off the Grid with Doug and Stacy.
What's up, homestead homies? It's Off Grid with Doug and Stacy. I'm Doug.
I'm Stacy.
And I'm Daryl.
Hey, hey! Man, it's kind of you guys know I'm a sucker for multi-generational businesses. And while we were at the Mother Earth News Fair, that you guys remember those videos, we ran into a guy who, his family has had this business, third generation?
Correct.
Third generation. And when I tell you guys who the company is, it's like, man, that's crazy. So we're gonna talk to him a little bit. We're gonna hear the story about how it all happened. Very cool story. And you guys know, if you watched our videos before, we're always kind of talking about this thing that you guys can use to have better health. So,
and I'm all about the health and getting the most benefit and the nutrition and the enzymes and all the wonderful things. So this is very near and dear to my heart.
I mean, if you guys are going to use things and you're going to grow stuff and you're going to eat stuff, you want to give it the most benefit to your body as possible. And you guys know we're always preaching that to you. So we're going to move on with it. This is Daryl.
Well, it's great to be on your program today.
Yeah.
And when people hear Utah, the first thing they think of is salt.
Yeah.
You've got the Great Salt Lake.
Yeah.
You've got these salt flats. Most people don't realize that 2 hours south of the Great Salt Lake, there's an ancient seabed that has these beautiful salt crystals. And salt, when you're trying to live off the grid or just take care of yourselves, is so essential. From food preservation to human health to animal health, you really need access to good salt.
Yeah. And so their company is called
Real Salt.
Yeah. Redmond's.
The name is Redmond, and we have a lot of fun different products for your horses and for your cows.
Right.
But how many of you guys do use the Redmond salt for your livestock, and you're using it hopefully for yourselves too, right?
So at the show, they asked how this salt was discovered.
This is a great story.
And so back in the 1950s, my grandfather had a farm in central Utah. And there was an outcropping of salt north and south of his farm that the Native Americans had harvested long before the settlers came into the valley. So in the mid-1950s, there was a big drought in Utah, and the drought was so bad that the farm was really struggling.
Yeah.
But they knew there had to be salt under their farm because the salt was north and south. So they took a big steel rod and pounded it down through the field to find out where the salt came closest to the surface. And right under their field, there was this huge natural salt deposit. So they took out a loan, plowed the alfalfa and the barley out of the way, and began selling salt to local farmers for their livestock.
And one of the beauty things about it is back then they weren't using GMOs, they weren't over-chemicalizing the land, so it really helped kind of preserve the state of the salt. Like today, if they found that, I don't know if I'd be weary of it or whatever, but it's just cool that it was found at a time when it could be used, harvested, and then prevented any further, contamination,
And in salt, contamination is kind of interesting. In the last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of articles about these microbeads in plastics that are showing up in table salt, actually.
Right.
Because the oceans, unfortunately, aren't as clean as they were several eons ago. Between Exxon Valdez, and we've got the BP spill, and we've got the Japanese disaster.
Cruise ships.
So our oceans are really not what they were back when this salt was laid down, long before man was kind of messing things up.
Right, I love that. So they actually plowed up the corn and everything. I just couldn't imagine, they're like, whoa!
Wouldn't you just love to see their faces?
Yeah. It's been a fun family story over the years.
Yeah, I love that. That's what we really strive to find, these multi-generational family stories, still made in America, still by Americans, and still doing the thing. So then they started, I guess you said they dug a pit. So they kind of cratered it first, right? Digging it out, chisel hands, everything?
Yeah, so back in the 1950s, they started with a single bulldozer and a couple jackhammers and started as an open pit mine. Well, after a few years, my uncle, he's kind of a great uncle, he was tired of being out in the wintertime in Utah mining salt, and he figured if he just tunneled into the wall, he could get out of the elements.
Right.
And so now all of our mine is underground in tunnels rather than an open pit.
Right.
We're going to give you some links so your audience can see what it looks like under the ground.
Yeah.
Really fun mine.
As a matter of fact, we're showing it to them right now.
And the other thing is this is so purifying for the air. Just going down there, you could just really go down there and breathe and be just so clean. That air is probably just the purest you could ever have.
One of the hot products, like you guys are probably seeing out at stores and stuff, is like the rock salt, where they hollow out the middle and then they'll put like a candle or something in there where it heats it, and then it puts that into the air, which is supposedly good for your health.
Yeah, so that started, the therapy is called halotherapy or speleotherapy. And it started in Europe because these miners realized living underground in the salt mine, they didn't have the lung issues that other people have. Well, in microscopic particles of salt actually purifies the lung, helps clean the alveoli, and so there's a whole therapy now on sitting in salt chambers because of the way the salt purifies.
And he gets to play in that stuff all day for free, and he gets totally nice stuff on him all the time with the salt. I love that. So you guys are selling the rock salt for animals. You're doing the human consumption stuff.
Yeah. So in a feed store, it might be called Redmond or Redmond Equine. We have call it rock on a rope, and it's a salt crystal for your horse. You put a rope through it, and then we have salt for your goats and your sheep and everything else. But what we have here at the show today is just more the food salt, and we call that real salt. Early on, we didn't know what to call it. It was this beautiful salt crystals.
Yeah.
And so we decided to call it just real salt. And
just keep it simple.
Because it has not been bleached or depleted of any nutritional value. It doesn't have any anti-caking agents in it or anything. I mean, it's real salt.
A question we often get is, what's the difference in this salt from Utah versus the pink salt that comes out of the Himalayan region? Great question. The main difference is 7,800 miles.
Yeah.
So this occurs in Utah, that occurs in Pakistan. There's another deposit very similar in Bolivia.
Right.
But this is the one that occurs here in Utah. Kind of has the red, white, and blue look on the label. And it comes from Redmond, Utah. And
one of the things we keep telling you guys is when you source your food and you source the things that you're going to use for your body and for health and nutrition, that you get it made as close as you can to where you're going to ingest it and where you live. So buying local, getting this kind of a salt in North America and using it right here in the States, that's the ideal. To have it shipped all the way across the world and get that kind of a salt, it's just got more travel time, more air exposure, and it's just always best to eat and stay as locally sourced as you can.
Can you tell us about some of the nutritional benefits of salt?
Yeah, so in salt today, people hear sea salt's better. Unfortunately, you can find garbage sea salt out there. Maybe 60 years ago, sea salt meant something, but today it really doesn't. So I suggest people ask themselves 3 questions, and you just covered those actually. Know the source, know the contents, and know what's been put into it or taken out of it. And if you can do that with salts or anything, you're much better off. But a lot of salts today, seawater occurs with potassium chloride, magnesium chloride, calcium chloride. Some salt manufacturers will take those other minerals out. And then you're left with just sodium chloride. And then even worse than that, salt is hygroscopic, meaning it sucks moisture out of the air. So if I have this crystal on a humid day, it will get wet. So to stop that, a lot of salt companies will add anti-caking agents to it to repel moisture. Now these anti-caking agents are things like sodium silicoaluminate or sodium ferrocyanide, and they repel moisture. And so when you take that internally, that messes up with the body's ability to deal with moisture versus the way nature created. And you can go to a hospital, they'll give you an IV of saline solution, which balances the body. So it's not the salt that's the problem, it's the food that the salt's attached to and the processing that happens to most salts today.
And that's why we tell you guys, stay away from the processed stuff, the salts, the sugars, everything white, bleached, bromated, processed, pasteurized.
Well, and what's interesting, you mentioned fermenting foods.
Yes, we love it.
Years ago, if we go back before we had a refrigerator, all of us
Heck, that's yesterday at our house.
That's right. But all of us would have eaten more salt.
Right.
Because our meat would have been preserved in salt, pickles, kimchi, sauerkraut, everything would have been preserved in salt. And then we didn't have these health problems associated to salt content.
That's a great point.
But it's the nature of salt changed, plus the food that salt's attached to is usually highly processed. So you've got this twofold problem when it comes to salty foods.
Man refined it. I said they make something good into something bad by refining it. You want it as unrefined and unprocessed as you can. And then that way you keep it. Because you go to a restaurant or you go somewhere and they use white table salt, you get all swollen. It's because of all the chemical agents and the anti-caking. And then when I can do tons of this salt, put it on there, and I'm totally fine. Like popcorn or however you're doing it, and it's great. It doesn't bother you.
one question people ask is, how do we get it from this form into the shaker? What kind of cleansing or processing happens? And I'm going to show you how simple it is. We're going to have Stacy put her hand out like that, and that is the entire refining process. My hands are so calloused.
Right.
No, we actually use a mill to do that. We don't use our hands to break it up, but the salt is simply just that. We just take this crystal that was laid down in this ancient seabed, and we crush it up, and that's it.
Yeah, so for the human consumption, they're keeping it very clean. They're just using a grinding, and it's just falling down, and then it's harvested for human use.
And you can even put one on your desk, and then just
hit it during the day.
Yeah.
So if you come to the, if you see him at any events, don't ever grab one of the salts. Did you see him just lick that?
Each of my kids have their own salt crystal they put on their dress.
Right.
Yeah, my dad's in Redmond. I love it. I think it's a fascinating story. I love the multi-generational part of it. I mean, it's just really cool, especially in today's day and age. It's so hard to find. Hopefully later on too, we're going to be talking to a 7th-generation company. So you guys, we just try to find this stuff for you and get you educated on that stuff. That tastes great. I mean, I just had a little piece right there. I'm like, my whole body's like, ooh, that feels good.
Because you're getting nutrition.
Right.
You're getting real yummy
nutrients.
things that your body needs.
Right.
Yeah.
What's kind of fun is at our house we have a little dish of the larger flake salt, and as you just pick on that throughout the day, it actually will taste sweet until your salt level comes up.
Right. And then your body will tell you you've had enough.
Yep. So if it tastes like candy, you need to eat more salt.
Right.
Oh, tastes like candy. Remember that song?
Yes, I do.
I love it. All right, so anything else you want to add? Like, okay, so they can find you like probably most stores, right?
You can find the salt at most health food stores. You can find us online, of course.
Right.
If you're ever passing through Utah, please come out and see us. We hope to have Doug and Stacy come out and visit us. We'll take them underground, show them the mine, and then you can see your own video of that.
Yeah, so thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to follow us on
Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
And hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
See ya. Hey guys, thanks for watching our video. You might want to check out these videos.
And if you want to become a Homestead homie, click the picture of us below.
We will see you tomorrow.